So, so hi everyone. I'm here with Paul Gander today, who's the founder of Stitch AI, who we're going to chat a little bit about some of the future of communications and technology, which I know you've been sort of instrumental and sort of heavily involved in. So welcome, Paul.
Yeah, Chris.
It's really good to have you here. So we spent a bit of time, I suppose, just chatting before around WhatsApp in particular and like the future of technology, and through the pandemic everything's been moving online and becoming much more digital. So it'd be good to see, maybe just pick up on some of the themes that you've seen recently, and particularly chat a bit about some of the WhatsApp interfaces that have been coming out. It'd be interesting to hear.
Yeah, sure. So the WhatsApp as we know it, the apps on our phone, it's just revolutionized the way we communicate with our friends, families and groups. So it's sort of moving on from text messaging. It's kind of picking up the, why is it? It's the UI, the user interface of WhatsApp is just so much more fluid than email. So a lot of people, when you don't organise a night out with your friends, or not that we can do a night out at the moment because we're in lockdown, but in a normal world, you don't email your friends about organising something. You create a group, you communicate. My mum, who's nearly 70, this isn't just a thing for millennials. So the use of WhatsApp has just gone, I think, exploded across all demographics of society. It's just the way we communicate. So what WhatsApp are doing with their API is enabling brands to connect with consumers. What we're seeing, and because it is so new, the brands that are doing it right now tend to be the large corporates because of the complexities and the cost involved. We're rolling this out to smaller firms, smaller teams, I should say, and the use of it is quite startling. So we play in a number of verticals, but to give you, there's a couple of interesting stats that sort of stick in my mind. So you'll be familiar with the property market. If you want to buy a house, you go on one of the portals, Zoopla, Rightmove, on the market, and usually you've got a phone or an email. And half of people just submit those forms. Out of the people that submit the forms, over half are opting in to chat with the agent over WhatsApp. Incredibly powerful. The sheer volume, and any estate agents listening here will know the volume of inquiries coming in. So when half of those inquiries, if you take a broad spectrum of the B2C market, a lot of people looking for houses. If you're given the choice, would I like to WhatsApp? Over half are saying yes, that's how I want to communicate. So that is telling alone in terms of the adoption of how people are willing to use WhatsApp to communicate with the business.
Yeah, well, why is it WhatsApp and not SMS? I mean, SMS has been around for a long time, and you get your doctor notifications, you get your appointment reminders at your dentist, those kind of through SMS, and you've done that for the longest time. But why is it? What do you think is different about WhatsApp that is a game changer from, say, what we've had with SMS?
So SMS is restricted in its character set. It can be quite expensive. If you were to have a to and from conversation with someone over SMS, it is very, very expensive. You start racking up. It's not like SMS we have on our personal phones. They're kind of, the charging for that is different to in a business environment, because why are you texting me? Just WhatsApp, because that's where we live.
Yeah.
And I think it's the other perspective. You're right. SMS is great for notifications. If you think about it, a doctor's appointment alert, a reminder. It's where it's a message going out and there's no expectation of a reply coming back. It's an instruction to remind you to something, and that's where I think SMS is going to start retaining its place. It's not conversational. The average business, you've got phone, email, SMS for notifications, but WhatsApp becomes that kind of blend of all of them, because SMS has a very good open rate, but you don't engage and respond and chat in SMS. Email is the evolution of the letter. Like I said earlier, you don't use email to have conversations with people. Another analogy someone gave me, was a great one the other day, is if you've got a fire in your house, you don't email the fire brigade, you call them. And there's point in a customer journey or an engagement, that what is the most relevant form of communication at that point. So the phone is relevant a lot of the time, but not in others. And consumer behaviour now is much more, I don't want to be sold to, and it's just that in the way that you use it in your personal life. You might not call your other half, you might just message them. And likewise, if you call them and they don't answer, who uses voicemail? You hang up, you send them a message. So that whole concept and we all work that way. We're so used to it in our personal lives, but when we go to work, we've got an email, which we know has, certainly if you're dealing with people as a business is engaging with customers with Gmail and Hotmail accounts, what's your open rate? Between 15 and 25%. And that's when they want to hear from you. And then the phone, playing telephone tag. So many verticals struggle with this basic communication, where in our personal life, it's sold by WhatsApp.
Yeah, and I suppose does WhatsApp gives you extra ability, I suppose, with the API that's been released to be able to track some of those things in terms of document delivery and those kind of things.
Yeah,
on WhatsApp. How does that differ?
Well, it's exactly the same. So from the business sending a message out, you can see when it's been delivered, open, read. Absolutely the same. So when someone's got a message. Very powerful if for keeping track on chasing. Has a payment demand has been sent out? Have they actually read it? Yes. You can see that they read it. There's no question because with email you don't know. And the other problem with email is junk and spam.
Yeah. You
just don't know with spam filters whether the message got through. So now you absolutely know. It goes back to why don't we use email? It is the evolution of the letter. We use email so we can create accounts on applications and web services and apps. We don't converse out of it. Yet when we deal with a business, that's the only digital form of communication that we have.
And so do you think we're on if the email was an evolution of letter, right? And so we all adopted it, and then we started getting spammed with it. To a certain extent, that happened with SMS. To a certain extent, do you think that's going to happen with WhatsApp? I mean, how's the API guarding against that, or do you think that's going to happen?
I suspect WhatsApp have been. Facebook bought them for $19 billion, right? So this is my thoughts as to how they've got to this point. Not official WhatsApp or Facebook, but clearly that business was bought, and we as consumers don't pay for WhatsApp. And as we know, Facebook are a money-making machine, and they've gone down the advertising route with Facebook Messenger, with Facebook. So with WhatsApp, I think what's incredibly important to WhatsApp is protecting that inbox. Okay. Spam and junk, you as a WhatsApp user, you're in control of that. So WhatsApp has some very strict rules of engagement. Number one, subscriber only. You have to give explicit consent. So take the analogy of an estate agent, because I'm sure in the past we've all potentially bought a house or rented a house. So you make an inquiry via a portal. You put your name, your phone number. Now, when that inquiry gets through to the business, that is not consent to send a WhatsApp message out. It's not consent. It's not explicit. You've got their phone number. You can text them, but you could sort of put rules of GDPR to one side, but also WhatsApp's terms of service. So if the portals, Rightmove, Zoopla, and whatever, if on a contact us form they have a tick box underneath the phone number saying I consent to be contacted over WhatsApp, now that is consent. That's different. So in terms of protecting it, and the holy grail of a 90% plus open and read rate is what they want to maintain. They don't necessarily want to go turning your WhatsApp inbox into something that then turns into another spam fest. It's value to anyone. The value of us as consumers in engaging with each other is that we're going to get a reasonably quick response out of someone because it's relevant. The moment WhatsApp loses its relevancy, there is a danger of that happening. So WhatsApp have a number of rules. Consent is at the top of them. Another one is that you're not allowed just to send any message you want to someone on WhatsApp at some point in the future. They have a sort of thing in place. It's called templated messages. So these templated messages are submitted to a human up at WhatsApp. They check what the message is. They see what your business is. And as long as it is relevant, informative, and something of use, then it gets validated. Accepted. They'll reject it if it's too spammy or promotional, bad grammar. So within a messaging environment from a business perspective, you'll have a list of templates that you can customize, like hi, insert name, further to insert description or problem or ticket update.
That's standard messages that go out.
It's allowed, as long as it is. You've got to think about it. This is not the top of the funnel stuff. This is not right. Let's just go and add a load of 07 numbers and start. You'll get barred for that. WhatsApp have a system of it's like if a business was to WhatsApp you for the very first time, you've got the ability to mark it as unknown call spam.
Yeah.
So the control is in the power of the user. So the businesses have to think very, very carefully. So you don't just go adding anyone to it, because if you do, you'll get blacklisted, you get your account barred. So the ways I think it's incredibly up on WhatsApp's list to maintain that relevancy, because if they don't keep that going, then the open read rate will be in decline.
Yeah, and how do you think about? I mean, WhatsApp is a closed system, I suppose. I mean, it is WhatsApp and it's Facebook and it's WhatsApp. I mean, do you think that's going to cut off some areas? I mean, it's sort of building that brand. I mean, are there going to be competing messaging services that are going to come in as well? Or do you think they just got such a market lead, or is it going to cut some people out of the market? I'm thinking about almost like accessibility to the wider market. I mean, SMS is accessible everywhere, right? But WhatsApp you've got to be a WhatsApp user. I mean, most of us are, you might argue. But...
Yeah, I mean, so if you take America, Facebook Messenger is the king out there. China, WeChat, and Australia is also Facebook Messenger, I believe. But certainly Europe and the UK, the prevalency is just massive. But the messaging sort of software solutions that we're providing will be almost channel irrelevant. So if a customer messages on Viber or Messenger or WhatsApp, all of those messages can come from several channels and be presented into one place. So we term that Omni-Channel. And I think, you've got Apple Business Chat coming out, Google RCS. From a UK perspective, WhatsApp is king. And I think it's no one's got a crystal ball, but I think messaging here to stay, whether it's WhatsApp, who knows 3 years, 5 years from now. But messaging is the structure of a message. We're used to that persistent thread. We're used to certain features with messaging, which just isn't an email. So I don't question of is WhatsApp going to be here. I think that messaging is here to stay. Whether that changes from one format to another is kind of up for debate. But messaging, absolutely.
And so we were just chatting earlier, and I know when you sort of showed me a little bit behind the scenes, just in terms of, do you think that the whole way we communicate with people is going to change? So what I thought was quite interesting was, for example, sending statements as an example over messaging, and having the security around that, and almost like that stream of consciousness or stream of conversation, you can almost like see it happening in your WhatsApp. In your WhatsApp group, right, or in your WhatsApp messaging. Do you think we're on a sea change of sort of changing the way we talk with companies?
Yeah, I mean, you take KLM, the airline, okay, not a client of ours. You go to the website, go to contact us. They have no live chat. They have no email. If you want to get in contact with KLM, there's phone, WhatsApp, Messenger. That's it, because it makes they are the most globally as a global provider that covers all their bases. And yet, when you start, it's more than just the chat side of it. It's the media side. So as you say, statements within your WhatsApp. I don't know if most people realize this, but when you go to either your contact or your group, it has media links and docs. So it is also organizing any attachments, links, videos. All that media is neatly arranged under the business's API, WhatsApp business account. And if you were to email a statement to a consumer, I mean, very few consumers are going to go, I'll save that in my Dropbox under that file there. It just goes into their email, and then everything else all comes in behind it. And then suddenly I can't find that document. But WhatsApp structures documents. It structures everything between the interaction. So yes, you'll see it neatly in your your chat, your persistent chat window, all the docs that have been sent, but also media links and docs. So yeah, absolutely, documentation and media exchange is so much easier in WhatsApp.
And can you make live calls, like you can do video calls on WhatsApp, you can do live person-to-person calls on WhatsApp. I mean, sort of on a personal level, you can definitely do that. Is that enabled for businesses as well?
Not at the moment. So within the API docs, there's no support for that. And again, this is my guess. I don't know what's coming around the corner, but I'd be amazed if they didn't start opening that side of things up. I mean, it's to get my background is in telecoms, and to try and take a call on a phone in WhatsApp, because all businesses have phone systems, so to try and route that call into other systems is quite complicated. So it's going to be a real shift change, I believe, in certainly for the B2C sector. If that's what your audience are and that's the way they communicate, software will have to be evolved to manage that interaction. At the moment, they're built with, we've got the tools to do messaging and document exchange. And for me, I see it as a natural progression. Not at the moment, and I don't even think it is in any of the documentation, but I'd be absolutely amazed if they wouldn't go down that route in the future.
I mean, you could certainly say you could have basically all communication goes to one channel, and it becomes a channel, and the channel becomes WhatsApp, and it's not, the channel isn't the media. It's actually just, I mean, it's WhatsApp, and it covers voice, it covers video, it covers documents, it covers text communication, like everything, right? You could see that. That's what made me think when we were chatting before, and is that a new way of interacting with people?
Could well be. I mean, the word Omni-Channel is bandied around quite a lot. Make it excuse me. If a customer wants to email, they want a phone, they want to, customers communicate in their own way that suits them best. There's no doubt about it that for a lot of people at the moment, WhatsApp is just an easy way of communicating. So if WhatsApp then want to try and dominate that market, that's, if they build the tools and make it easy, then people, the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
If consumers are demanding, we can see the demand now for messaging. If you put a photo on a website, if you were to think about what you would do, think about, I don't know, you want to buy some tires for your car, right? So this particular industry, I know, struggles with not answering the phone very well. So there you are, you're a customer, you go to the website, you typed in your postcode, and if you've got a choice of a phone number, an email, or a click to WhatsApp the branch, over half of you are going to click on that WhatsApp.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to do, and that number will only ever increase because we'll just get more used to it. But it is the path of least resistance for us, and believe it or not, it's easier for the business because email one-on-one. Let's just say Chris working on a project. My unique email address to yours is fine, but the moment you start trying to manage messages at scale into a shared inbox, email hard because if you've got 10 people in the department and you send it to sales at, what happens is that email gets sent 10 times over to 10 different people. Those 10 people do reply all. Now, unless they've got systems and software to manage those sort of large call centers has that. There's plenty of platforms out there that manage their ticketing systems, but they're quite clunky and slow. So the challenge to a business is how do they manage this inbound communication effectively? And with WhatsApp, not only is it easy for the customer, when the message comes in, it's either an unassigned chat or it's assigned to someone. It has an owner. It doesn't get sent out 10 times over. And so it's almost like a ticketless ticketing system. So when a customer has a query, it has an owner. And then, of course, from a managing of the process or managing of the staff who are managing the process, we've got a dashboard. Right, how many chats are we resolving? There's information. There's response times. There's what happened to that chat there. There's all these things that can then be managed better. Because fundamentally, if we just go back to phones, a lot of organisations struggle with the peaks and troughs. So when they're busy, the phone rings, and as a consumer experience, it's pretty poor. And certainly go back to the tire industry. You call up one branch, or there's no answer. I'll just try the next one. And that could be £1,000 sale gone just because you weren't answering the phone at time. I mean, some of the tools that we've been building, we're turning queuing phone calls or waiting or abandoned calls that were about to be abandoned into WhatsApp chats. So imagine called a branch and it's sorry to keep you waiting, please continue to hold or press 1 to start a WhatsApp chat. It picks up, it knows your mobile number and it sends you a text, sends you a WhatsApp message, and then we can start an automation journey there. What was your query? Pre-qualify it, and it just buys a little bit of time so that when someone in the branch can deal with it, because the phone is it's that call straight away, but WhatsApp is the asynchronous nature, so it is easier for companies to manage. Live, we haven't really talked about live chat, but live chat there and then, you've got the business respond. customers on your website and you've got to serve them. But with WhatsApp, it's asynchronous chat. The chat has left the website on the phone, on the app on their phone, and the immediacy is not the same. So it's just easier for all involved.
Yeah, I mean, I think that goes both ways, doesn't it? I mean, it's one of the reasons why I think as consumers we like messaging is because it doesn't demand an instant response. It's kind of like you're on break at work and you need to get something sorted, so you press a button and you know that it's going to go out there. You're going to get something back maybe at lunchtime or at the end of the day when you're doing it, or when maybe if you got kids, when your kids have gone to bed. And so it allows you to have it probably staggered over a different time period, but it's more efficient for you, right? And I suppose that can also be true from a client point of view, from a business point of view as well.
Absolutely. It's, if you've got a call center, then there's kind of that, there are people there, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 people, they're doing these things. But a lot of businesses, they have got distributed sales and service teams. Mm-hmm. And it's those distributed sales and service teams where the asynchronous nature of WhatsApp can just make it a lot easier. Every business wants to respond to every inquiry within a certain time frame, but it's not always possible. Yeah. But WhatsApp, as you say, it's. An example. I've got a faulty tap. I've got one of those Kuka, can you pronounce them? Kuka with boiling water taps. Yeah. And I've got a problem with it, and of course I have to do it via email. Now I know I can send a video from my email, but it's just easier. It's native in WhatsApp to send a video. So from a retail brand experience, there you go. There's a problem. A video's gone through, it's being then answered in WhatsApp at the other end and then responded to back. And of course, that asynchronous nature is I don't need it. And if on a website for live chat, I need to be stuck in it, I've got to be waiting. It's just different. The experience is completely different from a consumer perspective. So yeah, the asynchronous nature of it is it fits more into the need of the consumer, and that's what, for me, it's what it's all about: is serving the customer in what's best for them.
And the buttons on the website. So it's seen some buttons on the website. I mean, do you get what's the increase in response rate as a result of doing that?
I think it's been a bit. I'd love to say it's great. I think intangibly it feels better. Speaking to some of the clients, we're very new in what we're doing because is new what they're doing. Yeah. We took on a car leasing company. It only went live about 2 weeks ago, and there's no question about it. The volume has gone up and the quality's gone up because people, if they're going to give their mobile number, it's very different to giving a Hotmail or a Gmail email address out. In fact, we don't do that often. It's full of spam anyway. But for someone to give to actually come forward with their mobile number on their WhatsApp, so I think you find it's the quality. It's not just the quantity; it's the quality of inquiry. So just to add there, he actually said to me that the Instagram inquiries they get are very low quality. There's high volume, they've got to be served, we've still got to go through them. But he said the quality of the WhatsApp inquiries are heads and shoulders above. So,
do you think people are more likely to click on a WhatsApp link than they are to more hesitant around that versus actually giving their phone number, right? So it's kind of like, I'm probably quite happy to be messaged because I can ignore it, I can delay it, those kind of things. But someone who phones me, maybe I was kind of like, well, that's going to be more of a bother because it will go off during a meeting or, when I'm doing something else, or I'm busy driving, something like that. Whereas a WhatsApp, I can sort of, it's dialed down in terms of the immediacy of it and almost like the call that it's not shouting out for attention in quite the same way, even though it buzzes.
As I alluded to earlier, one of the verticals we work in is a estate agency, and one agent told me that they had 86 inquiries, and out of those 86, they only spoke on the phone to 17. And that's that includes people who return calls. So out of those 80 plus calls, and it shows you that consumer behaviour is different. That people don't answer the phone like they used to. Every business, recruitment, estate agent, automotive, they're all saying customers don't pick up the phone like they just don't answer the phone, and it goes back to that asynchronous nature. People are driving, they're in shift patterns. It's just it kind of is communication on the consumer's terms. The business can see when they've read it, and they're being available to those inquiries, be they sales inquiries, service inquiries, account queries, whatever they may be. It's just changing consumer habits.
And how do you think that the pandemic and the lockdown is going to affect the way we communicate with each other? Do you think you think that's going to drive more change, or this was going to happen anyway? I don't know.
Without a doubt, every business we're talking to is saying that because there's just been a real change in adoption. You know, we on Teams call, Zoom call. The way we work is, you know, it's just everything. And then, so in the businesses that are more B2C facing, I think that digital communication is as relevant now and more relevant than it's ever been. It's about what can we do to connect with our consumers in the most relevant way, and certainly, and even from a distributor, you know, if you forget your customers being distributed, staff are distributed, and you're engaging in certain communication channels. Now, if a member of staff is communicating on their personal WhatsApp illegally, and it's happening everywhere, you know, Chris, salespeople and service people they're telling us, you know it, they're using their personal WhatsApp. So there's no one else in the team knows what's going on. If they're working remotely, suddenly, if you have a team inbox, everyone knows what's going on. So yeah, I think that I'll give you another thought. When the first lockdown was hit, everyone went to garden centres, right? So, and at that point, the only way you weren't allowed to turn up, you had to call up to make to tell them what you wanted. Well, my garden centre, with the three of them that are nearby, just permanently engaged. When the phone did ring, no one answered it. You left a voicemail, no one came back to you. You know, the phone, and you know, it's just it would be so much easier in website. If you've got an inquiry, just WhatsApp it to us. Make it easy for the customer.
Right. You could WhatsApp and then just auto respond, right? Even with some of the answers as well.
Essentially an auto response. There's only so much auto responses can do. I think it's a good thing to sometimes acknowledge a customer or an inquiry. And if you filled out a contact us form, we can then start a bit of a WhatsApp chat, pre-qualify, right? What are your details? Use the autoresponder to capture and maybe just direct. You know, you're not going to go getting, and well, unless someone's going to be spending a fortune on a lot of software, but you can do some really basic, just common sense flows within WhatsApp that take half an hour to set up. You know, once we know someone's business, it's the 80-20 rule in life. I'm a big believer in, and you know, by guiding that, giving a bit of a first response, and then just waiting for someone take the garden centre as an example. You know, thanks for your inquiry. Please, please tell us the nature of your inquiry. Would you like to place an order for collection now, or ask a question? So if someone wants to place an order, we can then put that straight through to a team who can fulfill it. Whereas if someone has a question, we can send it to a different team.
So a bit like a WhatsApp IVR type thing.
Yeah, we've had it for years on phone systems. Press 1 for sales, 2 for this. It's exactly the same. We're not talking anything overly complicated here. You know, we're not going to try and understand, pick up sentiments and intent, which that sort of software is out there, and it comes at the higher end of the scale. But you can do a hell of a lot with some fairly basic flows.
So the other thing we've got is we've got a proliferation of channels, right? So I'm just like looking at my computer here. I've got a Slack session, I've got Teams session on Teams, we've got Zoom, I've got Skype, I've got email, I've got Messenger, I've got Twitter. I mean, you just keep on going, right? And you have to keep on top of everything. I mean, do you think we're getting too much? Is there too many channels, or because every software company wants to have their own data?
Yeah, they do. I think there are too many. I like what KLM have done: phone, WhatsApp, Messenger, because there's an element of making yourself accessible, but then if you're too accessible, you then can't control. And it's when you've got messaging at scale coming in. So I think in the B2B world, email is still king. I think for internal communications, Slack and Teams have helped. I used to, in my last company, we got to about 35, 40 staff. And it just drove me nuts, the constant reply all email threads. This is going back 3 years ago when I exited there. So up until that point, everything, there'd be someone sitting 3 meters from me doing a reply all email, asking me a question. It's like, talk to me, But the whole, and I don't think our culture was any different to anyone else's. It's just email was all you had. So Slack and Teams have come along. So instant messaging internally, better than email, but you've now got these silos of information. You've got a customer contact here, internal chat about it, and there's a disconnect. Yeah, and that is a problem. So there are tools out there where it will blend all of these silos, WhatsApp, Slack, email, you name it. It'll put it into a consolidated inbox. But that's a workflow solution. It's not a channel. So I think businesses need to think about, right, what channels are right for us. So
Mm.
with LM, so to keep using an example, but they don't choose email as a customer communication channel. I'm sure
Yeah.
they internally with suppliers, absolutely, but they are trying to focus client communication down just a couple of channels that are relevant for them. Like I say, I'm sure they've got internal systems and chats and all sorts of, with suppliers, but they've probably broken down areas of their business, like how can we do this in the most efficient way.
Mm.
If you were to take a estate agent, do I think in 3 years' time email communication will be high? No, I don't. As a
Mm.
consumer, why would I want to email someone when I can do it securely over messaging?
Yeah.
Take the payment, the legal side of solicitors. When someone says, right, please can you transfer £24,000 to this escrow account? Email phishing is just, it's such a problem. I don't know what the figures out there in terms of the fraud that goes on. It's a hell of a lot of money because the banks are, trying to combat it. The problem is email. People spoofing it. Someone goes and hacks your email accounts, your domain. But WhatsApp and other messaging platforms, what they're trying to make sure is that with their encryption, with their end-to-end encryption, when you get a message from a business, it's them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very difficult. For us to go and get a WhatsApp account for a business, it's a lot of work. You have to prove who you are. You need company registration documents. You need utility bills, address domains have to match. There's two-factor authentication. There's even, once you've gone past that point, and WhatsApp then say, yeah, okay, we're happy that your Facebook Business Manager is all verified. Then there's a verification call that's placed on your WhatsApp API number. So it is going to be very difficult for anyone to start spoofing these brands because that's where email falls short. So just on security and encryption alone, that would be a reason why in the B2C sector, do I see email being email now is the dominant one. There's no, because it's had, it's got a 35-year head start on everything else. But you start giving someone a choice as a customer, again, that will push the thought process of the businesses to say, well, how many channels do we want?
There's some interesting developments, just specifically on WhatsApp. There's some interesting developments. I thought, even in the last month or so. I mean, because I know like messaging's a big topic. I think in Microsoft, like Teams is like one of the top products now. It's got all the investment and all the eyes looking at it. But WhatsApp was quite interesting in terms of like, I think the US, there's new developments around being able to use Facebook and social messaging for contact. I'm talking about for collections here. So for banks to be able to reach out and contact people. And the other piece that I thought was interesting was I think it's a trial in India where they're actually doing payments with WhatsApp. And so that's quite an interesting from a financial services point of view. That's quite interesting in terms of like, so yes, you've got one hand, you've got people who can then be contacted proactively, which is a little bit what we're chatting about here. But then in another market, you've actually got payments being taken as well. And that further closes the ecosystem to a certain extent.
I suppose it makes it a lot more efficient. In the bit like with the video and the voice, payments, I suspect, will be something that will be high on their agenda. I suppose we just have to wait until these things are officially launched. But yeah, I absolutely, and you're right, they are trialing it in other countries. And I read the other day WhatsApp at the API is they're doing some A/B testing on other aspects of in different countries so they can compare because go back to my earlier point. WhatsApp don't want to decrease the consumer experience. The consumer experience is incredibly high on their list. I think they've got this fine balance between keeping the customer happy and the business is happy because clearly the business will be paying for this. But if they can roll out payments, I think that would be a huge thing because again, it's abuse. For the last 10 years, banks have been creating apps so we can do mobile banking, but of course now it's all about chatbots in WhatsApp to make a payment. So the payment to, so if there's a contact in your phone who's authorized, you just do it via chat. Because chat is that, people don't necessarily want to, I think chat is the new apps really, because rather than having to go into an app to do something, just give a command, send it off. And I think so. Payments and authorizations. I could say I don't know the detail of it. But certainly with the solutions that we're sort of working with, as and when those software experiences are available, that's the sort of thing we'll be pushing out to our clients. And we started off with just the shared inbox, the messaging side of things. And already, like we're building onto new experiences, such as turning abandoned calls or queuing calls into WhatsApp chats, and payments will just be another plugin. There's going to be QR codes from physical locations, making it easy. If you're sending out, payment, sending out a statement in the post, QR code, make it easy for someone to respond. I think there's just so many things that are going to change, all built around WhatsApp as that delivery mechanism.
I mean, one of the innovative, it was an app, it was an onboarding service, and the whole of the onboarding process was just through chat. There was no forms to fill out. Everything was through chat, and they had some sort of bot in the back basically capturing the data. So I hadn't seen that before, and you could sort of see that almost like evolving in terms of like what we're talking about, and like getting more like that. And do you think you're going to have almost like a complete service that's completely serviced just through one particular continuous, chatting, essentially?
Yeah, I mean, take the pre-qualification and data capture. We as humans are far more likely to supply. Once we've started a chat and it asks us a question, it's just more personable. It doesn't. When you're doing it in WhatsApp, it doesn't feel like a bot's doing it. If you're right, someone registers some details, like what is your full name? Capture. What is your address? Capture, and then pop that data into a CRM, so that work doesn't have to be manually done. And whilst I suppose you can do that with forms, but the uptake of forms, again, you email someone a form, you've got to wait for them to fill it in, and they start it, and then they forget it. Whereas it's that flow. It's just it's bringing automation at the same time.
I think it's also that the asynchronicity of the flow as well, and the fact that actually in some ways, rather than having shorter handle times, what we're actually going to have is total handle times will be much longer. And it's from a customer point of view. I mean, they want to have longer handle times because they're doing it in between whilst they're making dinner, those sort of things. I think that's almost like a new dynamic that's coming out, because it was always like, let's get it done quick, let's get it closed down. But actually, the customer wants to stretch it out, and this gives a way of doing it more efficiently.
They might, if you've got a form, it's like you've got a form to fill in, there's a bit of information you get to, and it's like, oh, I don't know the answer to that, I'll have to go, and then you stop, and then it's kind of out. But again, you go back to your phone, oh, I've just finished that one off there. And you're right, it's the async. A lot of it comes back down to that asynchronicity of it.
Paul, it's been great to chat to you. I really appreciate making the time. So we've had some interesting conversations, and it's very, very interesting ideas, and you can sort of see it gradually developing. And with the digital lean towards digital, I think just through the pandemic, I think it's sort of accelerating some of these ideas. So it's fascinating. It really is.
Yeah. Thanks for the chat, Chris. We'll speak soon.
Okay. Speak to you soon. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.